you're a strong black man. Why are you going to follow this? Did he call him a cracker?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to tell the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit us at shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. Thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, you can subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all our information at past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
First off, did you watch Game of Thrones, Gene? Did you watch the finale yet?
The House of the Dragon?
Yes.
I'm on episode 3.
Up until this point, I was like, man, I wish we had covered it. And then the finale made me thankful that we didn't.
Another season 8?
It's one of those stretching out what should be one season into 2 or 3, and it's now going to 5 total seasons. People are describing it as a 70-minute trailer for season 3.
Jesus Christ.
So, Gene, last week, Jackson, one of our great commissioners, was on his 3rd commission and commissioned a film. Tonight, I think, is the new big head on the Mount Rushmore of Shat. It's Jeremiah. And Jeremiah, if you don't know, he's been with us for quite a while, extremely generous, extremely active in the Shat community. This is going to be one of his 8 films that he has commissioned. And Jeremiah doesn't play. Jeremiah doesn't come in and say, I want to do some small art house film. I want to do some like Robot Jocks obscure film. He just shoots for the stars. He goes big, and his films are going to be loved. And that's why tonight we are doing a film for a star of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. I think this star has held his place in maybe an A-list, B-list celebrity at this point, but very few stars stand the test of time, and tonight's star does. And that's why I was very excited when Jeremiah wrote in and said he wanted to commission the 1997 action hit Con Air.
Who's the star?
The star is Nicolas Cage.
Oh.
Well, actually, you're correct. I didn't even think of that. There's multiple.
And I agree with you, Big D. Jeremiah's taste is impeccable. The list of movies that he's given us has been fantastic. And Jeremiah wrote in and said, Dearest Shat Crew, as I meandered through your list of movies ranked, I started to feel a sense of anxious joy at the prospect of commissioning some of my 90s favorites. To my absolute shock, I saw that none had yet to commission one of the greatest ensemble cast movies of all time, Con Air. This is personal. I grew up with no restrictions, and Con Air was one of several VHS bangers that I would rewatch over and over. While others my age were enjoying The Lion King and Toy Story, I was out there prepping for life via the lessons of Cameron Poe. I personally believe that if men went through life making moral and ethical decisions that mirrored Nick Cage's character, the world would be a better place. Last, I would like to say that I actually ended up in the same unit as Cameron Poe's character, the 2nd Ranger Battalion. I can attest that about 85% of the men I served with had the Cameron Poe caliber of ethics. The other 15%, well, Big D probably knows the type, the Patrick Batemans. All in all, thanks for what you do. You're amongst the best to do it. Rangers lead the way. And that comes from Jeremiah.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Jeremiah has some skin in the game for this film. You know, I was not an Army Ranger, but I was airborne, air assault. I went to sapper school grad. I actually went to the pre-Ranger course, which is a requirement at Fort Campbell to go to Ranger school. That was my plan, Ranger school selection. The Rangers were it. Good guys. My exposure wasn't more the 85-15 split he experienced. Mine was maybe 60-40.
When your chosen profession is blow stuff up guy, I think that mix is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, yes, very true.
Well, Con Air is a 1997 action thriller starring Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, and John Malkovich in the lead roles. Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, the film centers on a prison break aboard an aircraft. Con Air's ensemble supporting cast includes Steve Buscemi, Ving Rhames, Colm Meaney, McKelty Williamson, Dave Chappelle, and Danny Trejo. Con Air was released theatrically on June 6, 1997, and was a box office success, grossing over $224 million against a production budget of $75 million. The film received mixed reviews from critics with praise for its acting, musical score, and action sequences, and it received Oscar nominations for Best Sound and Best Original Song for How Do I Live, performed on the soundtrack by Tricia Yearwood. So Con Air came out when I was 17 years old. I had a car, I had a job at Arby's, which meant expendable income, and I had enough awareness to recognize the people in this cast. I was at that age where I started to finally know who the actors were. I would get excited about a movie based on who was in it. And I remember thinking the premise, the visuals, the whole idea of this movie was super cool. Everyone had cool nicknames. The action was over the top, and the concept was something new. I mean, we hadn't seen a prison movie on a plane before. And I think I've seen Con Air a few times since that first viewing in the theater, and I've always liked it. But honestly, it's been a decade or two since my last watch, so I was really excited when Jeremiah commissioned this.
I know we're talking about the film, but I just pictured you making Arby's roast beef sandwiches. Did you have any input into the sandwiches themselves?
I wasn't allowed to touch the slicer. I wasn't old enough. So when you're under 18 at Arby's, you can, this is the crazy part. You can't do the slicer. You can do the fryer. Totally okay, but they don't want you cutting yourself. So I got to do, I was fries, chicken fingers, stuff like that. But my speciality was the drive-through. Right?
You're very efficient. I could see that you would excel at that job. You're a people person, Gene. And you like the process and the flow. Yeah. So for me, I remember very little of this. I know the film. I remember the movie, the poster, the action. It was a big movie, but when it came out, I really wasn't in the best condition of my life. This was a big drug time. It was towards the end of college. I was into a lot of hallucinogens, mushrooms, acid, ecstasy. I wasn't very focused. I was troubled. I was struggling to get through the end of college, didn't know what I was going to do. So it was a big blur. So you have to forgive me if my memory's a little foggy. There were scenes later in this film we'll get to that I was convinced I knew how they played out, and they just didn't exist. So I don't know if I imagined it, if it was just a combination of everything, because this was a big time for action. If you think around this time, you had all the Michael Bays, The Rock had just come out. These big, over-the-top, action-packed, explosion, summer tentpole movies, these were a big thing, and I think maybe that's why they blurred together for me. This movie, I remember loving it, and watching it today, it was a great chance to go revisit at that time.
All right, Big D, let's fire up the Jailbird and hit the trailer.
He's a U.S. Ranger. Highly decorated. Did a little hell raising when he was a kid, but nothing serious. He's defending his wife. Got in a drunken brawl. And he killed a guy. Could have happened to you or me.
After serving the last of his sentence, Cameron Poe is taking the first plane home to his wife and daughter.
Today's flight is a special one. We're populating Louisiana's Felton Penitentiary. These guys are the worst of the worst.
See a lot of celebrities among us. I see 11 primetime lives, 3 Regents and Kathy Lees, and a genuine 2020 interviewee.
What you looking at, punk?
Nothing, I was just mind your cage.
But one wrong flight
Stewardess, what's the in-flight movie today?
can ruin your whole day.
What happened? We caught the plane, man!
Welcome to Con Air.
Jailbird 1, you are not cleared for takeoff.
And nobody on this aircraft gives a flying.
The issue here is how the plane is brought down.
Shoot it down.
There are innocent people up there.
He's got a little girl to come home to. He's been waiting for this day for 8 years.
What are you gonna do? What do you think I'm going to do? I'm gonna save the day.
This summer, check your weapons. Take your seat.
Isn't that your car?
And say your prayers.
He's got the whole world in his hand.
From Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer of The Rock, Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, John Malkovich.
Where are they gonna land this thing? How do you feel about the blackjack tables?
On June 6th. Buckle up. Con Air. Directed by Simon West.
Thank you, and have a pleasant flight.
Honorably discharged Army Ranger Cameron Poe returns home to Alabama and reunites with his pregnant wife, Tricia. That night, 3 drunk men assault Poe, who is given a 10-year prison sentence for accidentally killing one of them in self-defense. 8 years later, Poe is paroled and boards a flight to Alabama on the Jailbird, a prison transport plane. Accompanying Poe is his diabetic cellmate and best friend, Mike Baby O Odell.
So keep in mind, this film starts. Now I have some experience in the military. I think I'm going to have a better concept of what's going on. It opens up. We see him being discharged. I don't know if that's clear to the general audience at first, what this ceremony was. Maybe he's going on leave. Maybe he just graduated Ranger School. But even today, I'm struggling with this opening scene. Okay, he's being discharged, 2nd Ranger Battalion. This is in Seattle, Washington. But then we see him, he's home in Alabama. He's reuniting with his wife. It seems like they haven't seen each other in a while. She's like, I hope you've changed. He then pleads guilty to the crime. We'll get into it, what happens. And he goes to jail in California. So then he serves 8 years. He's released, but yet he's still in handcuffs and on a plane. And then they fly him back to Alabama. And I'm reading, I stopped it, Gene, because it's detail-oriented type of guy I am. And I started reading his release papers. The release papers say on the 14th, that day, he is no longer a prisoner. He should not have been on that plane. He should have been free. He should have had an opportunity to, like they say later, maybe take the bus. He should have walked free, but it's a wild scenario that they lay out.
I think, Big D, this goes back to how spoiled we are these days with action movie accuracy. Okay, back in 97, they didn't need any of this background. They could say, Cameron Poe is Army Man. He has medals. I think they just pick some exciting places that evoke some sort of feelings and they go with it. So what do we got? We got Alabama, down home, South, soldier, family man, California, exotic, lots of criminals out there. You got a parolee. You know what you could do? You could put him on like a Southwest Airlines flight. What is he doing on the flight with all these other dudes who are like bad dudes?
No, you know what you could do? Just walk out the front gate. Walk out the front gate. His wife could have gotten a Greyhound, been out there. They should have been at Blues Brothers, like out there right in front of the penitentiary, getting him out.
But this is a cautionary tale, much like Less Than Zero. Cameron Poe could have avoided all this by following my advice. Word of advice. Veteran bar goer here. Mm-hmm. Spent many a night in a bar, many weird situations. I don't care how tough you are. I don't care if you're a Krav Maga black belt, jiu-jitsu blue belt, a Wing Chun master. Always leave the bar if shit gets weird. If the 3 drunk guys that are making fun of your military service seem to have gone back to their beers, you're not going to be able to relax. You're not going to be able to dance. You're always going to be looking over your shoulder. And things are going to get weird with your wife because she's going to be like, why are you so distracted? What went on with those guys? Nobody's going to have a good time at the bar after this sort of interaction. Those guys, they might wait for you in the parking lot. They might attack you when you're not looking. Cameron, you just got discharged. You've been away for a long time. You just got home to your wife. Take her home, do sex, enjoy yourself. Why are you slow dancing at the bar?
Exactly. Why is she still working in a bar pregnant? What is she doing there?
Hey, now, I mean, the Rangers don't really pay all that much. He's enlisted, right?
He's enlisted, but it doesn't matter. If he's married, she's pregnant, they would take care of him. But the Army does a good job, and there is structure in place that helps families. On post, after, beyond, the VA has a lot of good programs. They could take care of her. And the South in general, my experience, they are respectful of the military. Alabama's got bases. Alabama's the last place I would expect him to be getting harassed by townies. Maybe up in the Northeast where Rambo was, cutting through a Northeastern town. But here, he should have been getting respect. He should have understood the second that they came at him from a bad side, honey, I'm going to take my wife and go. I'll slow dance at home with her. That would have been the smart thing, Gene. Very smart thing to do.
So anyway, Cameron ends up getting in a fight with these 3 dudes. He ends up killing one of them. And I understand that this movie hinges on Cameron Poe going to prison. And I have no qualms with that setup. But if you're going to do it, you got to make the conviction a little more plausible. Maybe make it a situation where there were no witnesses. Maybe he used a weapon, even one that he got off of somebody else. Like maybe he picks up the switchblade and stabs the dude, okay? Maybe the crime wasn't homicide. Maybe there's another crime. He hits the guy with a car or something like that, and that's why he ends up going to prison. Instead, what Con Air gives us is a man convicted of murder for hitting a dude too hard when his wife and the bar owner can testify to the events leading up to the death. The bar also was loaded with witnesses who all saw what happened, and Cameron himself saw his attacker's weapon. Okay, so he can express that to his defense attorney, and then the police are obligated to go search for that weapon, search for evidence of that weapon. Plus, this guy is a sympathetic defendant. He is an honorably discharged Army Ranger in Alabama.
Dude, am I correct? He's in uniform.
Yeah, he's in uniform.
He's in uniform. The police show up. They should have been like, all right, buddy, let's hear what happened. I'm going to listen to you. And they film that switchblade getting picked up. Like it's the big, like, wow, here's the smoking gun. Like what? You're in a muddy field and he's there. He's like, geez, I can't see. I got mud in my eyes. It's ridiculous. Besides the fact that the police and the authorities and the investigators would have been on his side, he's not getting stuck with Saul Goodman, the public defender. That's not going to happen. That's not how it works. In Florida, the state has a program, the Military and Defense Organization for the state. They got together a bunch of lawyers who will do pro bono work for anybody who is in the service or getting out within a time frame. There are programs up. He would not get stuck. And then the judge doubles down on the ridiculousness of it. It wasn't just self-defense, Gene. He was held to a different standard. He's saying, a normal person, this wouldn't have been a crime, but you have extra training. That's not legal.
No.
That's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. Let's take this to the next step, Gene. Imagine if you were a NFL kicker, or if you were on Manchester United. You got into a bar fight and you kicked a dude in the side.
Yeah.
And you broke, because you got such a powerful leg. You've been kicking the foosball and you hit him in the ribs and you kill a man. He says, most people could kick a man when he's down, but you, sir, are a professional Premier League player. You are held to a different standard. That's ridiculous. Or, Gene, let's say you're an F1 driver, right? And you cause an accident. Are you going to be held to a different standard because you've been trained at driving?
Gosh, I hope not.
But whatever. He goes into jail. And this is where we get a quick montage. They really don't spend a lot of time. We get to see him in there. He seems like he's doing well. He's optimistic. Wife is surviving on her own, and he's just going day by day. And we've always seen prison portrayed in 80s and 90s movies. It's a bad place. I always think of Blood In, Blood Out, or Shawshank Redemption with the brothers and the shower scenes that you always hear about, or what was the one with the what was it with the Norm Macdonald? Well, that's
dirty work.
Dirty work. That's prison. But either way, you don't want to be incarcerated. But in Con Air, prison seems okay. I don't think this is like a white collar facility because it seems violent, but he's making the best of it. He's learning Spanish. He's getting Hostess cupcakes and the pink snowball treats and Doritos mailed to him. He's got a nice desk lamp. He's got a little bit of a setup. He's making friends with everybody. He's building relationships. He's talking everybody's ear off. He'll tell anybody his story who will listen. Oh, I got to go meet my baby. Oh, yeah, she went to jail. Yeah, I can't wait to see her when she wasn't born when I was there. Giant, like riot breaks out. There's fire. Every like cell is opened. There's people injured on the floor. And he looks like he's at a bed and breakfast. He's just laying there. He puts his head down. He rolls over. Nobody bothers him. He sits in his bunk. It doesn't seem that bad. It seems like he's doing okay with it. No fear of rape or murder.
Not having ever been to prison, I'm open to the possibility that a prison like this exists. Unlikely, right? But it's possible. But the reality, though, is somewhere, in between. Prison isn't generally rape and riots. I think we would hear about it a little more often if that was the case. But it also isn't often snowballs in Spanish, right? The friends of mine who have been to prison, I asked them, like, what's the worst part of it? Like, is it about always looking over your shoulder? Or is it, really crappy food? Or is it just like counting down the days? They said, yeah, it's a lot of boredom and sameness. Like, that's the worst part of prison, is just every day is kind of the same. And it all just stretches out. Nothing really happens. You just sit a lot. You lie in your bunk a lot, to the point where, like, anything you could see on TV, any book you can get your hands on, anything like that is something to break up the monotony. And most of the time, it's a pretty safe but boring place.
And even the 8 years didn't seem too difficult on the wife and the daughter. He's getting optimistic check-ins. We also get recess, but here they're not as nice as your teachers are. Like, where is the wife saying, listen, I'm struggling. I'm holding down 3 jobs. I'm really hurting here. We need some help. This isn't all. He's getting rainbows and unicorn in the letters from home. It seems like a delightful 8 years that it was almost like a vacation for him.
Except for his hair.
Yes.
The inmates boarding the flight with parolee Cameron Poe include mass murderer Billy Bedlam, serial rapist Johnny 23, Black Gorilla Diamond Dog, and Cyrus the Virus Grissom. The flight is overseen by U.S. Marshal Vince Larkin, and DEA agent Willie Sims boards on an undercover mission to get information from drug kingpin Francisco Cindino, who is being picked up en route. After taking off, inmate Joe Pinball Parker sets another prisoner on fire, allowing Cyrus and Diamond Dog to take over the plane. Agent Sims tries to retake control of the aircraft, but Grissom kills him and takes his gun.
I think in a world of like a lot of bad ideas, this might be the worst idea. I understand you have to transport prisoners, and Vanessa deals with Delta with when they're, returning people to a jurisdiction, and it's a very like secure process in which you can do it commercial. You don't need to stick them all on a plane. And then they double down. You hear the guards and the police and the DEA agents, they're discussing the facts that, hey, this isn't just a plane full of hardened criminals. These are the celebrities. These are like the Jeffrey Dahmers, the famous serial killers. They're going to put them all on one plane, and they're going to fly them across the country. The weather's going to be bad. It's an old rickety C-130. It looked like, I don't know what it was. Feels like it's a video game. When you're like, Black Gorilla, Diamond Dog, Cyrus, I want to know what their finishing moves are. But one tops the next. And then we get Cyrus the Virus Grissom. And we think this is going to be the big bad. He is the super villain until Steve Buscemi walks on that plane. Oh, he doesn't actually walk on the plane. He's more like guided on it as playing Garland Green. He's the Marietta Mangler. And they treat him, Gene, for those people who haven't seen it, they treat him like a combination of a velociraptor and Hannibal Lecter. It takes 2 keys, like on a nuclear sub, to open up the doors on the truck he's in. He comes out. There's a metal wheelchair that guides him through a padded, like armored truck. He's wearing a leather vest. Metal clamps and poles they're guiding him out like a zombie in The Walking Dead. You're led to believe this is the most deadly criminal. And they're just, I think they overdid it a little bit. And then you got Sally Can't Dance, and it's a weird group, but they're quite memorable.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. It was like the Supermax prison all-star game or something. And I think it's important to remember that in 1987, these actors were red hot at the time. I remember when Garland Green was revealed and Steve Buscemi's like face was finally revealed, there were cheers in the theater because he was a big deal at the time. And they start to signal to us at this point in the movie that like the silly accent that Nicolas Cage has, his prison experiences, the fact that they're loading all these guys on a plane, it's meant to be sort of ridiculous. It's sort of over the top. It's a big show that they're making of it. It's supposed to be a fun blockbuster film. And this treatment works. I actually wish they would have leaned a little more into the cartoonishness of it and made it something like Scott Pilgrim versus the World or something like that.
Yeah, they're not the most competent criminals. You got a mixed bag of knuckleheads, and I think that makes it more plausible when you have the idea that you could just have to get out of your head that you have Dave Chappelle. This whole plan hinges on him swallowing a wet match and a vial of some flammable fluid. When's the last time, Gene, you think you could digest a wood match and he's not even like struggling to strike it?
Yeah, that's why they don't call me Pinball. You got to earn that nickname by swallowing matches and being Dave Chappelle, the most underrated member of this entire cast.
Oh, yes.
The plane arrives at Carson City for an inmate exchange, but the ground crew is unaware that hijackers are disguised as guards and the real guards are forcibly disguised as inmates. Among the new passeners are Sandino, pilot Earl Swamp Thing Williams, and serial killer Garland Green. The authorities discover the hijacking but cannot prevent the plane from taking off. Meanwhile, Pinball disposes of the plane's transponder but dies trying to reboard during takeoff. The inmates agree to land at a desert airstrip and transfer onto another plane owned by Sandino. Poe finds Pinball's body in the landing gear and writes a message to Larkin on it before throwing it out. Larkin contacts the National Guard and leaves to intercept the fugitives. Billy Bedlam discovers Poe's identity, forcing Poe to kill him. So Big D, Jeremiah highlighted the fact that Cameron Poe is a man of impeccable character, right? He is the model Army Ranger. And I understand that this man has spent years in the slammer with Baby O. Mm-hmm. They're besties, right? And he doesn't want this guard, Bishop, the female guard that they put on the plane with rapists and serial killers. He doesn't want her to get raped. But why is that his problem? And I don't mean to be selfish in this situation. And in fact, the reason why my English teacher, when I was in high school, wouldn't write me a letter of recommendation for Air Force Academy was because I said, sometimes you got to put yourself first. He didn't like that. But you know what? Cameron Poe, he didn't decide to put the woman guard on the plane, and he has no idea what the feds are up to. They might have a plan to rescue everybody. They might have a plan to get Baby O out of there and get him his insulin. His best bet in this scenario is to get the fuck off the plane. Tell the feds everything he knows. Tell him everybody who's on the plane, everything that's happened, and then go home to his family. But Poe, I'm starting to question his loyalty to his wife and child because he repeatedly gives up chances to reunite with his family. And even when they are reunited on the Vegas Strip, he goes back out to chase the bad guys. I am a husband. I'm not a father. But I imagine when you become either or both of those two things, your family has to be your number one loyalty. You can't put anybody, no friend can come first.
Hey, see, Gene, but they start the movie off with the Ranger Creed. They're leaning into that heavy. No matter the odds, you never leave a man behind. You'll never fail your comrades. They're leaning into that, even though it doesn't make sense. He's now got his guy. It's Baby O, and he is going to defend him. And when at first we saw him on screen, and he gives him the pink ball that he likes so much, I said, "Shit, is that fucking Bubba?" Because this movie is self-aware, and it makes fun of other action films in the genre. Speed. I think here they're taking kind of a little dig at Forrest Gump. Because Forrest Gump had came out in 94. You now cast Bubba, who is going to befriend this white, nerdy, awkward guy. It sounds like Bubba. It sounds like Forrest Gump learned the voice from here. Baby O. Now, you remember Forrest Gump running through the woods? I'm going to save you, Bubba. And he's running, carrying Bubba. Yeah. Here, Poe tries to do the same thing to Baby O off the plane. And he goes, no, put me down. But it is a combination accent of Bubba and Forrest Gump and Sling Blade. I think there's something going on here where there's a nod to Forrest Gump.
Yeah, so many choices were made in Nick Cage's portrayal of Cameron Poe. Terrible accent, There's, of course, I mentioned the haircut or lack thereof, that jeans and white tank combo. Like, it has endured the test of time. Don't get me wrong. This is an iconic meme, but there is no way that I can take this seriously. And so you got to wonder, like, are they poking fun at something? I don't remember people laughing back in 1997, and it might have been a joke that just went over our heads.
No, I don't know. I wonder if he was filming something else at the time. There had to have been some reason for it, because in no costume, no art director, no one's going to say this is a great idea unless you're trying to show how far he's gone. Because a lot of guys get out of the military and they grow their hair, but they don't go with this look. This look is very unique, and he's taking time. He's working out. He's staying in shape. He's trying to make himself look presentable. So the hair is an odd selection for him to do, other than, I mean, it works and stood the test of time because it is so ridiculous.
We wouldn't have had that iconic, like, wind blowing through the hair wink scene without the hair. It's a critical part.
Also, if he had a clean cut, he might have looked like law enforcement. It might have made him easier to identify. Here, he just looks like one of the prisoners doing time. Like he has nothing to lose. That hair screams, I have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose.
Well, the Jailbird lands at Lerner Airfield with no sign of the transfer aircraft. Cyrus orders the others to fuel up the plane and get it ready for takeoff, and Poe leaves to find Baby O a syringe for his insulin, meeting Larkin and informing him of the situation. They discover Sandino planning to escape on a hidden private jet, which Larkin sabotages by lowering a crane arm onto it. Johnny 23 spots a National Guard convoy approaching and gives the alarm. The inmates grab weapons from the Jailbird and ambush the National Guard, but Larkin defends the surviving troops using a bulldozer. The remaining inmates return to the Jailbird and take flight. So a lot of people listening to this podcast might say, Gene, we know your history. We know you cannot help but love a silly movie. It's like catnip to you. The worse, the better. And if my criticism of Con Air seems to conflict with my general love of intentionally ridiculous movies, I have to tell you, I struggle to explain it to myself. I'm like, I should by all means be loving this, but for some reason I'm not. Nick Cage looks like an asshat. We've got airplanes towing convertibles through the sky. There's junkyards loaded with full propane tanks. There's lines like, Sai, Onara. And the action sequences, wow. There is a plane crashing through the airfield, and John Cusack somehow manages to get into its path multiple times. I don't know how you do that. And he's not the only person it nearly hits. But I think the problem here is that the movie is sufficiently ridiculous, but the production quality is too good. That might be the problem with this movie. The cast, it's talented. The production is too good. And then the violence at times and the themes that are presented, like rape, they're intense. So it makes it, at the times when you're supposed to giggle, I found myself groaning because of this conflict, this maelstrom of flavors.
I agree, Gene. It's odd. I usually love, because I was thinking Armageddon. Armageddon, a Bruckheimer film. I love. I can't get enough of it. The Rock, another Bruckheimer film. There's the ridiculousness. You think of like The Rock, the whole streetcar coming down the hill, you know, or the VX gas, or the planes flying straight up at the end, and the whole scenes breaking in with an old ass Sean Connery, or just the ridiculousness of teaching miners to become astronauts instead of astronauts to mine. There's a balance. It has to be perfect. And I, like you, felt that this was a little bit leaning towards nonstop ridiculousness. And I never felt the plot got going. I felt like, okay, they're on the plane. We're going to see what happens. And they're like, oh, we're going to land the plane. And then we're going to take the plane off again. And then we're going to land the plane again. Then we're going to find another. It never got going. And in a movie full of whats and whys, this movie is endlessly, there's things that I just found myself wondering, and maybe it's because early on the guards are talking when they finally realize it's been hijacked, and they're like, what are we going to do? And he says, there are no contingency plans for something like this. It's never been contemplated. Nobody in the entire police force had thought, what happens if this plane gets hijacked? Nobody. They're at an airport. The plane takes off. You know that it's hijacked. Why are you tailing your little beacon? Get another plane in the air. Go after them. Follow them. Why is Baby O getting an insulin shot on the plane like it's drink service? Give him the insulin shot when they're on the ground. It could have been done before you took off. Why is the pilot, who's got the only gun on the plane, why does he say, hey, get the gun out of the box? Go out there. Why are you leaving the locked cockpit to go out there? Why is there a sandstorm and you're still going to do a transfer? And we haven't even, when we get to the boneyard, that's where I noticed it was becoming a bit just too much for me. And for people who haven't seen it, they go to this like kind of it's like an abandoned, it's off the beaten path, unmanned, or maybe it is manned because there was an air traffic controller. It's an air traffic. It's like a little airport out in the middle of nowhere, but they have a full airplane boneyard. The bad place to put that would be either at the beginning of the runway or the end of the runway. They have it on both ends, Gene. The boneyard is there, and get the police coming. And if you're trying to get to an area quickly to stop this plane from taking off, don't take a 5-ton with you on the convoy. That's going to slow you down. You mentioned the propane tanks. They funnel, it turns into what looked like Mogadishu. It looked like Black Hawk Down. Instead, here you've got John Cusack behind a snowplow leading these soldiers out of Mogadishu. It's ridiculous. It's wild, and it goes too far. I think they went too far.
And that's not where the questions stop, Big D. I mean, I had so many more. Why did the chopper land? They're looking down. They see it's a fucking war zone down there. Like, well, we better put her down. We got to get on the ground. Check it out. And then they get to the Vegas Strip. They got 3 convicts on the fire engine. Jump on motorcycle. Why don't you radio the firefighters and say, hey, guys, stop the fire. You got 3 guys on there who are trying to take over your fire engine. Why do the cages on the Jailbird have like one lever at the front of the plane? You hit it, they all open up at the same time. Scene's great. There is a prison cell rigged with explosives. How the fuck did that happen? And why? You're out of prison. Why would you want to blow people up at the prison? Kind of gives your plans away.
You know, people have riders, whether they're musical artists or actors have requirements. Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen him act with a t-shirt on.
I mean, in 97, I understand why.
But do you think it's his choice that he says, no, I don't wear shirts?
No fucking
Or
way.
did people hire him just knowing he's not going to have shirts and he's going to just have tatted up?
It's like that hockey song, Hit Somebody by Warren Zevon, where you got the goon, like the enforcer on the hockey team, and he just wants to score a goal. But the coaches keep saying, just hit somebody, you know? Danny Trejo just wants to do a movie with a shirt on. And every time he gets, he's like, okay, I don't have to take my shirt off for this one. They're like, right. And then when he gets out, they're like, it's kind of hot out there, Danny. Don't you think we're going to get you on top of that, that tower? Yeah. Maybe you want to take your shirt off?
Danny, you dehydrated. You okay?
Yeah.
Danny, we got to take care of you, buddy. A couple of weeks ago, we had Cloak and Dagger, and we were saying it'd be great to act in sweatpants.
Yeah.
Act like in jeans and like shirtless. He's living the life. This dude is living the life.
Or conversely, maybe he owes Rip $50,000. Rip's like, hey, Danny, you have to take that shirt off.
Yes.
Well, Bedford's body is found, and Baby O takes the blame. Larkin and Sims's partner, Duncan Malloy, arrive in attack helicopters, damaging the Jailbird's fuel tank. Poe takes command of the cockpit, and Larkin instructs him to have the plane land at McCarran International Airport. But Swamp Thing is forced to land it on the Las Vegas Strip. Grissom, Diamond Dog, and Swamp Thing escape on a fire truck, pursued by Poe and Larkin on police motorcycles. Poe and Larkin kill the 3 fugitives, and Poe reunites with his family. As the surviving inmates are apprehended, Garland Green is gambling in a casino.
So, people, if you've not seen this in a while, maybe you're like me. First off, some of the things that I thought I was going to see, I thought that the plane was going to have an issue with the landing gear because we had seen Pinball get stuck in it. They crash land later. I expected the plane was going to land and he was going to use the Corvette.
Wow.
And have the plane land on the front of the Corvette, and that's how it's going to be destroyed. I also was convinced that this was a Michael Bay film. People, it is not a Michael Bay film. It is a Bruckheimer film, but it feels like a Michael Bay film. And Con Air is the greatest Michael Bay film that was never had anything to do with him. It was directed by Simon West. This was his directorial debut. And he had a smart idea. He said, look at the movies that are big hits right now. We got the Rock. We talk about all of this over-the-top action that's going on at this time. And Michael Bay is huge. And he says, you know what? I'm just going to emulate everything he's done. But he does something that I could never expect. He makes Michael Bay look like Michael Bay is restrained. He just keeps pushing and pushing. We get the usual stuff. He casts a lot of Bay guys. We get Nicolas Cage, who was in The Rock. We got John Malkovich, Transformer 3, Buscemi's in Armageddon later. It is nonstop action. There's hundreds of quick cuts. It's stylized, the cinematography. You see the shots. You see slow motion smoke, people walking through shadows. It's artistic. Tons of fireballs in slow-mo. It feels very much like it is a Michael Bay film.
Big D, until I was putting together the outline for this podcast, I didn't realize it wasn't a Michael Bay film. And I had to actually look up Simon West because I had no idea who that was. This fits into, like you said, Jerry Bruckheimer produced. You just figure it's a Michael Bay movie, and I could have sworn it was. But there are slight differences. I think that Con Air doesn't take itself quite as seriously, which, for better or worse, does give it a little bit of a different flavor.
The VX gas on Alcatraz being saved as a terrorist as you're going to kill the entire San Francisco population, that's pedestrian. That is like a love story PG film compared to this fire truck scene. And I'm going to assume a lot of people haven't seen it in a while. So we have Cyrus the Virus is on top of a fire truck with some other inmates. It's barreling down the Vegas Strip. He gets speared by some fireman like hook that you would use to like break up a window or something. He is stuck in the ladder of this ladder truck. You see a building ahead. It's an elevated walkway. He smashes through this on the ladder like he's crucified. He screams. The building then explodes for some reason. He flies through the air and lands on a set of electrical wires. He's getting electrocuted. There's a giant fireball. The fire truck, Gene, then what happens? It careens and hits an armored truck. There is now money in the air. There's the fire, the sparks. Is he dead? No, he's not dead. He now falls to the ground in a pile of rubble from the building he hit. And there is a giant, like, mechanical pile driver that just happens to be doing construction right there. He falls into it guillotine style and gets his head smashed into the ground. This makes Michael Bay look like a pussy. That Michael Bay could not do something like this.
I want to remind the audience as well that this is after an airplane landed on the Las Vegas Strip. Okay. An airplane crashed
Did it land?
I mean, it crashed into a casino, knocked portions of, I think, the Hard Rock down. So presumably, like, streets are probably going to be closed down a little bit. There might be some debris and stuff like that. That's where most movies would take a cue. Like, okay, the end, right? Maybe, Cyrus comes out of the airplane and there's a fight or something like that. Or, he shoots somebody. I don't know, whatever. This was wholly unexpected. And I agree, Big D. Cyrus got just a mousetrap of a death. But you can't tell me that Johnny 23 death didn't kind of make up for it. That was one of my favorite, where he's just the arm is hanging by the handcuffs and they pull his body away and you realize, oh shit, like his whole fucking arm came off. I don't know. That touched me in a warm place.
It's because they're setting it up like he's pretending that he's dead. Like he's hanging there. Like you're expecting him to come back and no.
And aside from an overdose of action and ridiculousness, I can't think of a movie that suffered this badly from having so many stars. You know me, I love an ensemble cast. I love an ensemble ending. If they would have done like some sort of chorus line at the end of this, it would have been fantastic. But you hear these names and you think, wow, like this is going to be an incredible movie. But with so many big characters in this film, there's no room for anybody to shine. Like you got Ving Rhames. There's a scene, Ving Rhames talking with John Malkovich while a shirtless Danny Trejo is yelling at them. And Steve Buscemi is having tea with the little girl. This is all happening at the same time. I don't know where to look. I want to spend time with all of them, but I don't get to spend time with any of them. They're trying to give everyone screen time. And oddly, the person who came out looking the best was Dave Chappelle, who seems to be in his own very funny movie while all this is going on.
This almost could have been a trilogy. There's so much going on here. They're wasting it because you're picking up these little conversations where he questions, he's trying to turn Diamond against Cyrus. He says, why are you going to follow this guy? And he says it's an ends to a means. I'm like, all right, yeah, let's see what's going on. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Then we follow Green into like the pool with the kid. And I thought they were going to go full measure there and we were going to see a bloody child corpse, but no, but
Nope.
They deserve better. So Gene, do you think the answer would have been less of them or to pull out plot points that were wasted, like the second plane, the drug kingpin, the landing in the sandstorm? Have it be more compact so we could spend the time on these, or do we reduce the cast?
Right. Those are your two solutions. And I think either one works, right? You put in some generic dudes that are just kind of there, fodder, right? Dudes just get
red
killed,
shirts,
kinda.
I believe they're called.
Red shirts, yes. And then you go with this cast, a smaller cast of stars, and you let them shine. Or alternatively, yeah, the plane just stays aloft the whole time. Everything is happening on the plane. And then it gives all these characters more time to interact, get to see the characters a little bit more, get to see them act. There wasn't a need to do all this up and down, like you said. The cast member who got the shittiest deal here was John Cusack, because John Cusack is a legend at Shat The Movies, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Sure Thing, The Grifters, Stand By Me, One Crazy Summer, Better Off Dead, and my personal favorite, Grosse Point Blank. He's been in a lot of our movies, and he is so gifted. But he's gifted at a particular thing, which is delivering complex lines, tricky lines in believable and understanding ways. That's what makes us love John Cusack. And I'm watching Con Air. I love John Cusack. I couldn't put my finger on why he just didn't seem to fit into this movie other than his ridiculous billowing dress shirt while he's trying to run like a weirdo until his final scene with Duncan Malloy. Two guys, they're like sitting there in Vegas. He actually got to have normal dialogue at the last 10 minutes of the movie, right? He wasn't running around. He wasn't trying to do action. He wasn't delivering these melodramatic lines with Nick Cage about trust and shit like that. He was just doing John Cusack, which is being a normal dude. And a normal dude does not belong in this movie.
No, I agree. And it's Grosse Point Blank, great. You need John Cusack. He's a smart guy. He's witty. You can't be witty in a world of idiots. And it's, I mean, he's not an action star. He's a fun character, but you don't want to see him out there leading a group of soldiers through a funnel of death in the boneyard behind a snowplow, and he's leaning out the window. That's not his thing. He shouldn't be put in this situation. But we're finally coming towards the end. You think the movie's ending about 5 different times. You think that it's going to end, when a plane crashes. No. We get more. The movie keeps going. And for the entire movie, Poe, he's a social butterfly. He's talking everyone's ear off. Everyone who comes within 5 feet of him, guards, inmates, anybody. He's like, can I tell you, I'm going to meet my daughter today. It's July 14th. It's her birthday. I'm going to meet my daughter the first time. Did I mention she's 8? He's doing this to absolutely everybody. Your whole plan is to see your family. You're meeting your daughter for the first time. And you talked about why is he going after Baby O? Let's put it aside. Here it is. You're there. The family's there. You're going to meet them for the first time. You want to have the best impression. And we think about the family meetups at the end of Die Hard. It's the reunion. They're kissing. Oh, so we're back together again. This completely fails, and it makes me worry about what's going to happen to this family. He shows up with that hair. He couldn't even get a haircut. He says, I plan to get a haircut. When, dude? You knew you were getting out on July 14th. For 8 years, you knew you were getting out. Why didn't you cut your hair? And in the end, the daughter looks at him, Casey. She looks at him with this mix of disappointment and fear. He shows up. He's a mess. He's bloody. He's sweaty. He's filthy, his hair. And he's brought his rabbit, his big thing, his olive branch to his daughter, who he's missed her whole life. Is this sewer rabbit that's been in a plane crash. It's been actually into a sewer. He gives it to her, and then he looks at her like, well, why isn't she receptive? Where's my hug? Casey's face is a face of terror. She's hugging him. She looks at the mom and is like, oh my God, is this my dad? She's horrified. This is the worst reunion we've ever seen.
I understand that times might be tough financially for this single mom or this working mother with the father in prison. But I just got to wonder, like, you had the baby. He's in prison for 8 years. You can't go visit him, not once. He's in cream puff prison. It's not even tough prison.
Why doesn't she relocate to California?
Yeah.
Be near the prison.
Well, she's got that bar job, and we're going to find another bar job.
Oh, yeah, there's no bars in California for a pretty girl, a pretty blonde girl.
What kind of mom takes her kid on this insane trip? Like, we're going to take you up in helicopters. There's going to be escaped convicts. There's a plane fucking crash. Yep. Oh, come on. Let me bring my daughter with me. This seems like a great idea.
Yeah, but you won't take her to prison to see dad because that's going to be, it might scar her.
Yeah.
But you take her in the middle of a gun battle and exploding buildings and pile driving heads. And it's what happens. Casey's got to turn into some damaged kid down the road. And maybe this is like tied into the same world as like Leaving Las Vegas, where Nicolas Cage is like this damaged drunk who is still hanging around the periphery of Vegas and questioning his life choices. I don't know if he had a daughter in that, but if he did, I imagine it was very much like Casey.
All right. Well, now is the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when Nicolas Cage shows you God does exist. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It's having to drive through 3 states wearing a girl's decapitated head as a hat. I'll go first. Big D, I really, really, really wanted to like this movie. But it attempted to straddle the line between comedy and action like some hyper-violent version of Airplane. And I couldn't help but wish it would either be a serious action movie, which I think would have been good. Like, you could have taken it that direction, or a really, really goofy comedy, like just something silly. I said, wow, a lot when I was watching this movie, but never in a good way. It's 3 3/4 wipes for me.
It's hard for this cast, for the memorable roles, the memorable lines, the memes, the gifts. This movie is held on. You mentioned this movie. People remember it. People are excited by it. I can't question the budget. I can't question. It looks like a Michael Bay film. It looks stylized. It looks it's beautiful. It's competently put together. It was marketed well. It's exciting. I could picture it's a hot summer day and you go out there, you sit into the movie theater, you get your popcorn, your soda. I can't go that bad. I was going to go 2.5 wipes, but this is better than that. It's, you know what? McDonald's is McDonald's, right? But when you're hungry and you just want a quick meal, you can grab a burger. I don't expect this to be an art house film or something that's going to make me think beyond how did Cyrus survive the building, the explosion, the electricity. It's a mindless, fun adventure. And maybe it's the fact that I like Armageddon and that type of film. Maybe this was made for me. This is the genre that's made for me. 2 wipes.
In defense of McDonald's lovers out there, I am a McDonald's app holder. I think I have like 15,000 points to redeem. McDonald's is wonderful, Big D. It's delicious American food. Well, Big D, between your 2 wipes and my 3 3/4 wipes gives us an average wipe score of 2.875 wipes for Con Air.
Oh, Gene, that feels wrong to me. Just feels...
Should have been a better movie.
Oh, wow, that's harsh. So, Gene, with a wipe score of 2.87 wipes, it feels wrong, but in reading these films, I don't know that it could be any more perfectly placed. It is in the 286 spot with Armageddon, The Last Boy Scout, Escape from New York, Spies Like Us, Strange Days, 16 Candles, and In the Army Now.
Yeah.
I think it's right up there with all of those. This
is hovering in the average area. I think it's okay.
It's fun. You can't outbay Michael Bay, but they really tried. They tried. This is like, you know how you can get like orange juice in concentrate?
Yeah.
This is concentrated Michael Bay that they forgot to add the water. This is the essence. This is the purified, distilled version of Michael Bay with about half the water you needed.
I feel like I feel like a time traveler went back and was like, hey, there's going to be a thing called memes in the 2020s. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and plant the seed for some of the greatest of all time. We're going to put them here. And it was a movie that was meant to be enjoyed in Instagram stories and reels.
Yes.
All right. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, The renaissance of Nicolas Cage continues, obsessed with bringing terrorist Castro Troy to justice. FBI agent Sean Archer tracks down Troy, who has boarded a plane to Los Angeles. More planes, Gene. Yes. After the plane crashes, Gene, and Troy is severely injured, possibly dead. Archer undergoes surgery to remove his face and replace it with Troy's. As Archer tries to use his disguise to elicit information, Troy awakens from his coma and forces the doctor who performed the surgery to give him Archer's face. This was commissioned by Frank F. And this sounds, Gene, like this is a more grounded, realistic film than we did this week.
I mean, this is as frank a movie as rad. I'm very excited to do it. Another giant of action film, John Woo, as the director. That's very, very exciting. I think it might be our first John Woo movie. So I'm all on board for this. And this one also pulled in over $200 million. So another huge Nicolas Cage movie.
So let's try to predict, Gene. Have you watched it yet?
I have not.
Which film will be more grounded? Face Off or Con Air?
Oh, God. I'm going to go Con Air.
It's got to be. It's got to be.
They swap faces.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Like, what the fuck?
I could picture the government or law enforcement putting all of these like serial killers on a plane and it crashing in a dust storm and all that happening. No, the fact that the plane crashes, survives, coma, you have all the makings here of again, another perfect 90s action, dumbed down summer blockbuster hit.
Well, Jeremiah, Frank, thank you for bringing us the joy that is Nicolas Cage for this week and next. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever I find podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
I've been chasing this guy ever since I joined the force. He has no conscience and he shows no remorse. He's the mastermind behind numerous bombings and political assassinations. He has a felony list a mile long: murder, arson, kidnapping, terrorism, you name it. He's the most dangerous and brilliant criminal mind I've ever known. For years, I've been watching him, tracking him, studying his every move. I know his every mannerism, facial tic, gesture. I know him better than he knows himself. And now, after all this time, I finally figured out a way to trap him. I will become him. If I live.
You're not having any fun, are you, Sean? Try terrorism for hire. We'll blow some stuff up. It's more fun.
Plan B. Let's just kill each other.